And that's it for me.
They're currently extended until the end of the month.
Right, August 30th.
And how much is that total?
John, what is that total that we make in interest every month?
So currently it would have been, for example, last year, here, 1 second. Sorry. Last year, we received $31,824.43 for loan interest. Our current amount would be slightly higher if we were to collect on the loans on this year, because we did expand on 2 other loans and we just had a third. So it would have been a little higher this year, but as a result of the COVID, obviously it's going to be lower right now.
So $2,600 a month ish, or more.
Right.
That's 26,000 roughly, for 26,052 was our last year monthly income for interest.
2,600, yeah.
Stephanie, what is the, you said most were ready to resume payments, but there were you?
Actually, Labyrinth has resumed payments with the Western Region Corporation in Cattaraugus County. And I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part of your question.
How many folks are saying that they are unable to resume payments?
They are not. 3 out of 5 are saying that they can't. And that would be a salon, a hotel, and the Labyrinth being a restaurant.
Okay.
I don't know what the right answer is, and I hope maybe some folks we can kind of talk about the best way to approach this. But I think that there is a vast chasm between businesses like the Salon and or the Labyrinth and the Hamister Group as far as when we resume payments. So I want to kind of throw that out and find out where the rest of the group is in terms of their viewpoint on that issue.
I think there's definitely, as you're right, Tim, there is a big difference. I think the question becomes, do we want to provide a blanket deferral, or are we looking at this on a case-by-case basis? There could be potential for both, whether that is a blanket referral for another month or 2, or whether that's simply case by case. I'm kind of putting those couple options out there for folks just to see what you all think. But you're right, there is a wide difference. Capacity limits are still very tight, as many of you know, and it makes it very difficult to operate businesses. Even with, for example, salons, they can only take so many at a given time. They can't book used to, and I have no idea how the hotel business is doing. Right. I'm sure they're at also a reduced 50% capacity. So all very different. So let's see what their folks think. Are there any thoughts on whether we want to either provide a blanket deferral for or 2, or should we just look at that case? There's 5 loans total, as Daphne mentioned.
If you provide a blanket referral or deferral, I'm sorry, can a business elect to choose, to pay? I know that's kind of how it is with school loans right now. You can pay if you choose to, or not. But is that something we can do?
Would we still charge interest in the interim?
Yeah, and I think that's
Yeah.
important to note, is that we had frozen the interest and kind of frozen
Mhm.
all of the terms. And so
Right.
we're at that point where do we go back to charging interest, but we do a blanket deferral or a case by case? But I the interest has been frozen up to this point. So I think that's where
Mhm.
we're at, is do we start charging the interest again?
Interest is the primary source of income for this organization, so not
Right.
having income reduces our future viability and ability to put out loans. So I'm kind of thinking we should start charging interest again and give them the option to either start paying or defer and extend their payment period.
Mhm.
Would anyone be interested in an interest-only payment?
I think that's a great option to put out there.
Mhm.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I also think, these are vastly different businesses. I think you have to look at that and the amount of money that they're paying. And I don't know. I can see both sides of the issue on it. I mean, we worked really hard in the past to make particularly the hotel project work. And that is a huge, huge piece to the downtown corridor and business. And, I think we have to do it. We have to do it to make sure they're viable and that they're around for a while. So, again, I think it's a case by case situation, but I like the idea that it also may give them incentives to, if they can pay something, the interest or the principal on it, it gets them back in the game, so to speak.
If we go to interest-only payments, how long should that go for?
Yeah, that's a good question.
That's the next question. You see a lot of places now considering, for example, student loans, as was mentioned. That's now being deferred until the end of the year. Do we go to the end of the year? Do we wait a couple months and just move to interest-only payments and see what happens?
Well, at this point, I think we're close enough to be considering the end of the year.
Think so?
Yeah, we're
Anyway,
coming up to the end of August. So yeah, I think the end of the year might be a good time for that.
Something.
I think for a lot of these businesses, 100% occupancy is really what they're waiting on. And we're all hoping that happens before the end of the year, but the actuality is that it might not. And I think an interest-only payment is smart, but I feel like it being contingent on the government saying, okay, you guys can go back to doing business as usual is really important. And I feel like that would be supportive of the businesses too. So I don't know.
Is your contingency to make it so they pay their full payments once you get 100% occupancy? Or are you saying not until, interest only until 100% occupancy is granted?
I think that's fair. Yeah. Interest only until 100% occupancy and then resume payments as usual.
Would it be prudent of us to move to interest-only payments, but provide a hardship waiver for those businesses that could not even make the interest-only payments? That if it would be more of a case-by-case, should they know that they cannot even make the interest-only payments, that they could come back to this board to ask for a waiver until the end of the year?
I think they could certainly ask for it, but I personally want to see a lot more information from that business and do it on a case by case.
Agreed.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Mhm.
Interesting opportunity. So it sounds to me like we're considering interest-only payments on loans until December 31st, 2020. And individual businesses can request a hardship waiver from this board, but it sounds like we would want financial information showing that hardship. That sound about right to folks?
Yep.
Yeah.
And we're encouraging the businesses to pay their principals so that they're not going to pay more interest overall, because not paying down their principal is going to result in more expense for them. So
So I will, Stephanie, is there a specific motion or do you want us to just make it?
I think we can just make that, but I know that the clients are going to be eager to hear what will happen with August 30th. If that is going to be an interest-only payment, we have to get that set up if we have time to do that. So I guess my question is, August 30th, is that going to be frozen or is that going to be an interest-only payment?
Is a payment due August 30th? Or you're saying, for example, September 1st?
I'm sorry, it's due August 30th.
I see.
Wasn't it already extended until August 30th? So wouldn't that have already
Well,
been?
actually,
I mean, we could do a motion that interest-only payments starting September 1st, and then whatever payments come up after September 1st and onward would be interest only. Does that work?
I would make it just the 31st of September or the 30th because of all of our documents say that they'll be paying on the 30th every month. So it'd be, we don't want to redo all that documentation to be on the 1st.
So to make it the 30th.
So make it the. So first off, I think there's a good there's a question there. The 30th loans are due, and it sounds like you're saying, Stephanie, that the 30th there will be 5 of those loans will have a payment due. Is that right?
All the loans are due technically on August 30th.
Okay.
The motion would be to switch that and just have it their first payment or interest payment start on September 30th.
September 30th.
Is trying to.
Okay. So how does that sound?
That sounds good.
I like that approach, and it gives these businesses an opportunity to manage their cash flow. It gives them a month to make that adjustment.
Are we doing this for all the loans? I mean, there's 5 that are in question, I think, from the sound of it, but we have more than 5 loans out there.
right. I think John said we have, I'm sorry, I'm having technical issues. We have much more. I think we have about 10 loans right now, and only 5 people responded to my question of how would you like us to proceed with your loans?
So we're talking about all of them.
Right. Yeah, we're talking about all the loans.
We have 7 right now, but one of them has been paying consistently the whole time, and that's Jamestown Rental Properties. They chose to continue to make their payments on there, and that's also why we've only received just a part of our interest this year. So really, there's 6 total in question, and a total of 5 responded. Correct?
Sounds about right. All right. So what I'm hearing that, just to confirm, the motion is to have all JLDC loans be interest only, starting with the payment on September 30th, 2020, until the end of the year, December 31st, 2020. And businesses may apply for a hardship waiver individually to the board.
And I would add it's at the option of the business to take that. They can still pay their full amount should they choose.
It's option of the business to pay to continue payments as normal towards principal.
Yeah, that's good. Mm-hmm.
Do I have a motion for that?
I'll move that.
Chris will move. Second?
I'll second it.
Second by Tony Dulce. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion is passed. Okie dokie. Next one, we have a marketing initiative updates. Crystal or a member of your staff, would you guys like to give us an update?
Yes, would love to. Everyone on the board has the graphics in front of you. Okay, great. I don't know if you've had time to take a look. I definitely want this to be a conversation, get your feedback. I shared with you some of the feedback that we've received from the stakeholder group as well. So it is a work in progress, but this is kind of the first peek at where this initiative is going in terms of graphics and look. The logo is not a done deal at this point. I would like to get your feedback on that, the way it looks and what your thoughts are on it. But there has been some discussion on, and as I'm sure you saw in the notes, there's been some discussion on the look of it. But in terms of going through to the campaign concepts, the first concept, it's a vibe. I think we all agreed that it was great. We like where it's going, but we really preferred the second concept, come for the funny, stay for fill in the blank. So at this point, I'd really like to just open it up and get your initial thoughts and where you think this is going, if you like where it's going, ideas on color and feel.
Crystal, you just said something, it said, there was come for the funny, stay for the hops was one.
Mm-hmm.
I liked what you just said, stay for fill in the blank. I mean, fill in your own, whatever you choose to do. Because it could be the craft beers, it could be, I don't know what eye candy really is, but but I like the idea of it come for, that's your, the destination is to get here for the comedy center, but then lots more to choose from after that.
Right. And there was definitely a lot of discussion around some concern, I guess, with making it too much about the comedy center, but at the, where we are in the process is we really needed to pick, like, what is our lane? What is going to get people here to Jamestown? And that is the comedy center. That is the destination. We all know that the Jackson Center is phenomenal and the Fenton is awesome. And we have all of these other attractions and things that we all love.
Yeah, especially weird history types like me like that, but that's not, that's not everybody.
But that's not going to bring you who knows, is not, intimately involved in the community to come here. So, it took us a lot to get to that place, but it was also really important for us to, I think that we charged Block Club with a really difficult task. And that was, it needs to be about the community as much as it is about the destination and the things, the attraction of the comedy center. We want to embrace that we are comedy's hometown, and that took a little bit of massaging as well. But the stakeholder group is in alignment at this point. Everyone is on board with the direction that we're going. And we felt like Block Club did a good job of kind of marrying that difficult task of, we've got the attraction, what's going to bring people here, and then what's kind of the hook, what's going to keep them here longer, what's going to, where are the other things that, people can do and experience while they're here. So we wanted it to feel authentic and, unique to Jamestown. And we really felt like they've done a good job with that, with the Come for the Funny campaign. So
I like the flexibility of the Come for the Funny. It seems very flexible, like Up Close was. I don't particularly love the artistic rendering of the logo and stuff. It's my own opinion.
The logo.
It's hard to read for me.
Yeah.
The common feedback we've received.
Yep.
But the kid with his ice cream cone is great.
Hey, I love that.
I think we should put some 3D bananas out there on the sidewalks too. I think that was pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Any other updates on this, Crystal?
Not really. We're at a point now where I think we're going to continue to work on the logo itself and try to get that squared away and get everybody on the same page with that. But otherwise, we've asked Block Club to come up with a couple more ideas in the Come for the Funny campaign part. And then we'll talk about what does our campaign actually look like? What are the initiatives that we will fund, and then where are those funds coming from? So there will be more on that. You know, we're working on putting together what does our budget need to be in the short term, midterm, long term, and what will that budget fund? And then start looking at, okay, where are all those funds coming from? So
I like the concept that was presented in there where you add a thing in the back, like maybe you could add industry or something, and then you could have Mast or somebody support the marketing effort. I think that flexibility would really give you the ability to try to go after some of our local participants and start getting them involved in the overall marketing scheme, and hopefully help support that financially.
yes, absolutely. That was really where we hope to be at a place when they come up with the next couple of concepts. We want to have a package that we can present to our partners. And as we start to identify who those partners will be and who wants to, you know, have a presence, really. They are also, Block Club is going to come to town and take photos. So, you know, these images are obviously stock photos. They're going to come to town to take some photos locally. So there will be local images that will be part of our marketing. So
Crystal, I realize.
overall, are we on the right path? Is
I like it. Yeah, I think so.
there anyone that doesn't like it?
No, it's good. I like it.
Okay.
I love the Come for the Funny. I agree that the logo is just kind of uninviting.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, part of the logo is the uncover part of, you know, uncover. Are they sticking with uncover?
They are not. So
Okay,
yeah,
good.
we had a lot of discussion around that. And we just decided, like, we don't need to fit this into a prescribed sort of box, like just get rid of the word.
Okay.
And make it about just Jamestown. So
Yeah. Okay.
I would throw in with both Chris and Peggy that, yeah, there's some design / typography challenges with that logo. And I don't know like what the cones, like I'd love the logo to somehow be pegged back to some of the identifiers of Jamestown. And I don't know what any of that means visually.
okay. Well, we'll share this with Block Club and see if they can figure out what it means. I think they've done a great job so far. We've given them kind of a monumental task, and I think they've handled it really. Once we actually saw these campaigns, it kind of was like everything came together, and it was like, oh, yes, they get it. So.
If there's additional feedback, Crystal, do you want us to email?
Yeah, please feel free to email me or call me, whichever. Absolutely, and we'll make sure that we get it back to them.
Great. Any other further comment on the marketing initiative update? Okie dokie, moving on. The next one is the JLDC loan program review, evaluation, and discussion. We do have some guests to welcome. I don't know, let's see, Tamu, Graham Reinhardt, Rasan Graham, Shannon Greenland, and Jessica Smith. Welcome all. I wanted to just lay down a bit of groundwork, and then I'll let Crystal, whoever else would like to speak, talk about it. One of the initiatives that Council Member Graham Reinhardt had put forth and talked about was how are we potentially supporting our minority and women-owned businesses across the city of Jamestown. And it started kicking off a larger conversation of how are we looking at our loan programs, and are our loan programs not only supporting minority-owned businesses, but are they supporting businesses in general? Many of our loan programs look at have a need for a lot of capital, have a need for a lot of fixtures, have a need for different things that support businesses that may not always be the businesses that we want to be able to bring into town or support. I say that because many of our programs have stayed the same for a very long time, focus on things like ensuring that restaurants have things that they need, the fixtures, the stoves, the ovens. But a lot of our businesses, as they start to grow, need more working capital, need more additional support. Some need payroll support. And so a trend has been going not only here locally, but when we look at cities like Geneva and other cities across New York State, they are changing their loan programs to meet the needs of businesses as they evolve. And part of that is also looking at, is there a way that we can tailor some of those loan programs for the changing needs, but also provide a subsection to really support and mentor and bring more minority and women-owned businesses to the city. I will tell you that the state maintains a minority and women-owned business database. There are 4, and they are all women-owned businesses in the city of Jamestown. We in the city of Jamestown often look for minority and women-owned businesses to contract with. Every year, we have to ask for a waiver from the state because there are none that we as a city are even able to contract with. So we are always looking to do that, and so we're looking for ways to support that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to see if Crystal or Tamu have anything that they want to talk about, or to just help us introduce some of the folks we have here.
Yeah, so
Go ahead.
Tamu, before you get started, I'll let you take over here in a second, but I just also want to sort of preface this. So the loan program worksheet that you all received in your email packet, these are the programs as they exist and have existed for many, many, many years. When I came into this position, one of the first things that Stephanie brought to me was, we really need to look at these. They're not working the way I think they were intended to work. They really just need an overhaul. And then with COVID and just the challenges that we've seen, businesses are now more than ever being required to really adapt and change their business model and the way they do things. And the way these loan programs are structured, I'm sure they were structured in a way that made sense at the time. But I think now, even with our small business loan program or grant program that we did with our COVID CARES Act funding, we really looked at it and we did a survey, and the survey came back and like Eddie said, the needs were all over the board as far as what each individual business actually needed to be able to survive and weather through the storm. And so we're kind of looking at this. This is I think the perfect time. We know that there's great need out there, and I think that I guess what we're coming to you with is right now, maybe there's not a decision on exactly how we reformat, but to have some conversation and discussion around the way the loans are structured currently, and how can we structure them in a way that is more supportive of what small business needs truly are in the community, and that are truly supporting those small businesses that are coming to us with that need, that they're coming to us because they don't have $50,000 in collateral or $50,000 in the bank. And so, we just want to, I guess, encourage you to consider ways that we can structure these in a way that is more flexible and offers more flexibility to businesses to use the funding in a way that truly supports them and what their unique needs are. And then also, in what ways can we hold businesses accountable, and what kind of process can we work into? You're not just applying for a loan, you're applying for a loan, and you're also participating in a training program, and we're offering you continuous support. And that will kind of lead us into the next agenda item as well. So I don't want to take up more time. Tamu and your team, if you would like to discuss some of your thoughts when you guys reviewed this, and maybe introduce yourself and I know Shannon and Jessica and Rasan, each of you, when you do say hi, maybe introduce yourselves and give a little bit of your background, just so everyone has an idea of who you are and what your expertise is. That would be great. So
Thanks, Shannon, or Shannon, Crystal.
yeah, it's fine.
So Tamu Reinhardt, I know most of you because of the relationship with City Council. So my background really is in education and professional development and training around diversity and inclusion. So my real reason for kind of starting down this pathway is in the wake of the recent incidents with George Floyd, we saw an increase in the number of people really reaching out and asking, how can I support minority-owned businesses? And the sad thing was, when we realized, as we started to look throughout our community, we realized we really didn't have any. And for people who may or may not know, African Americans nationwide have about $1.1 trillion in spending power. With African Americans and other people of color, that goes up to about $3 trillion. And when we find places and ways to spend our money in things that relate to, that are particular to our culture, we will do that. And so this started me in another direction, and I'll go over that after we let everybody else introduce themselves. So I don't want to go too far. How about you, Rasan?
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? I see some familiar faces on the call. I don't know if I'm dating myself or I'm dating them, but I see a former substitute teacher of mine and my freshman basketball coach. So
That's right. Yeah. I did the math. It was like 34 years ago, I
I
think.
know, it's good to see you.
I haven't changed a bit in either of you.
So no secret, Rasan Graham. So I'm Tamu's younger brother. And I, by way of Chicago, college and grad school for 7 years, Minneapolis for 3 years. I've been in New York City for about 20 years. I make it back to the area probably 6 or 7 times a year with my family, and everybody's still back there. And so my background is nonprofit, big and international nonprofit, education and child protection. And then I recently moved into charter schools. That was probably over the last 10 years, where I was a founding board chair of a charter school, and then worked for that charter school as a chief strategy officer and chief advancement officer. Currently run my own consulting business, focuses on a couple different areas: diversity, inclusion, equity, those types of issues with organizations, implicit bias, those types of things. I do some stuff around nonprofit management, so everything from fundraising to programmatic log frames and positioning nonprofits for sophisticated donors. I do some work in corporate social responsibility, which is really the flagship of my consultancy, and so working with corporations and businesses who really want to be philanthropic in the right way so that what they're giving to community is having a true impact. And then I do small business development, specifically around minority business development. So looking at issues of ethnic marketing, multicultural marketing, and just good, strong business plans and new business launches and product launches. So those are the 4 areas of my consultancy. I won't get into the details of how I get to this conversation, because I think I'm going to lead us off on the next agenda item, so I'll defer the time to the rest of the group.
Shannon.
Shannon Greenland. I own Green Sprout Consulting. It's a small consulting company that I started about 4 years ago. Currently, I help 14 small businesses manage their business affairs, everything from payroll, HR, everyday tasks, bill paying. I've helped 4 businesses start right from the start, helped them LLC and all that stuff. Do any sort of contacting they need to do with companies with things like insurance, the knowing what they need to do if a business is opening, what parts of the city, county they need to contact, what all that means. So that's me in a nutshell. It's been pretty neat. But it kind of opened my eyes as to what we're lacking in this area and what people really struggle with small businesses. So that's kind of how I got involved in all of this. I contacted Tamu and said, you know, I want to help in any way I can and get involved because I already do this on a much smaller level. So I'm ready to hop in and see what I can do to help on a much larger level.
And Jessica.
All right. Hi, guys. I am a recent replant back to Jamestown from Raleigh. I was born and raised here, and I'm back due to circumstances. Just recently lost my mom about a year ago, so I'm in Jamestown. But while I'm here, I want to utilize and put my skills and knowledge and resources and experience away to use here in Jamestown. My background is primarily HR and recruitment with a mix of diversity and inclusion thrown into that mix as well. And with that HR and recruitment experience comes a lot of project management. I am a very data-driven individual, and I have a lot of experience using data to strategize and fix any part of the process or project that I'm working on. So that is a strength of mine. I am very good at saying something's wrong and strategizing to come up with a solution. And like everybody here, I was activated, for lack of a better word, when George Floyd was murdered as well. I've been back in Jamestown for a while, and now I see an opportunity for us to get involved and maybe motivate and lead people in my community and of my community to do the same. So I'm open and willing and able to help and to put my skills to use in this community. So I want to be a part of this conversation for that reason. So.
Thanks, Jessica.
Absolutely.
So when I reached out to the mayor and to Crystal, we had an initial conversation about what programs were available through the city, either grant or loan programs. And Stephanie shared with us the document that you received in your email. And so I sat down with Jessica, and the two of us kind of looked at the different types of loan programs that were available just through the city of Jamestown. And Jessica noticed it, and maybe Jessica, if you want to speak to a little bit more to it, but Jessica noticed right away that when you are looking at applying to the city for a loan, there's a level of capital that you need to bring with you. When you're looking at the small business development loan, it's 50% participation. In minority communities, that 50% participation is not something you're going to see. The generational wealth and our access to finances in the minority community is not as robust as people may think it is. And so the first thing that we kind of noticed as we were looking at some of these programs was, and this is through no fault of anybody on the board, this was just something that, you know, as people were putting these programs together years ago, looking through a very different lens. And so when you look at, for lack of a better term, and not to put anybody, make anybody uncomfortable, but it's when you talk about structural racism, when you talk about classism, you're already beginning to filter out people who may want to have access to these programs, but cannot come up with the financial capital to do so. And so as we looked at these programs, we really started to think about how possibly the city could reevaluate the loan program so that 50% participation or whatever participation is required of a small business is reduced. Not necessarily eliminated, because we also want a level of accountability to the people who are applying for the loans. However, we're requesting that maybe the city take a little bit of time to reevaluate the loan programs as they're written, to really make them to make them more accessible to people who have a business idea, or who have been operating businesses out of their kitchens or out of their backyards, just kind of barely making it and wanting to grow, but don't have access to the capital to do so. So we're asking that maybe you would take some time to reevaluate that, as well as what Crystal was saying, which is maybe some of the categories might have been good categories, several years ago when this was developed, but we may need to start looking at either developing other categories, or what was recommended was just make them small business loans in general, and then the board here would make a determination based on a business plan or the idea that the person has for a business to determine whether or not they would fund them. I will say that I haven't just gone to the city for this. I don't want anybody from the city to feel as though that we're only coming to the city for this. Crystal has shared lots of resources with us that Jessica and I are slowly starting to pick through with regard to minority grants within the state, as well as federal and other places. So there are a lot of resources out there. It's just a matter of what people might qualify for. And I've also approached Andy Goodell with some ideas with regard to either in Jamestown or even in the county, increasing the number of minority and women-owned businesses in the area. When people have an opportunity to empower themselves financially through a variety of different ways, we see that impact on everyone. And so my ask, my request of the board is to just kind of have a conversation at some point in time about the loan programs. We recognize that you had me a little nervous before thinking about the loans that you've chosen for some of the businesses before, because we're here asking you to give more money and with less money put in. However, we really believe that now is the time to start empowering people in our communities so they can feel like they are a part of the community. Depending on who you talk to, there are people in African American Latino communities that really don't connect with downtown. And so that doesn't necessarily mean that they won't come downtown, but there are people who would like to see things closer to where they live in other parts of Jamestown. And I think a way to do that is by looking at how to develop businesses in other parts of town. So Jessica, do you have anything to add?
I also agree with you. We do need to not only review the terms of, I think that's important. The most important thing is reviewing the terms of the loans and going through each step by step and determining their feasibility to the real working people that actually want to start up these loans or these businesses, I should say, and how that each of those terms affect the community and their feasibility overall. Is there any way that we can gather and kind of go through the loans and the terms individually and kind of redefine those categories? Is that something that's possible, I guess?
And so basically that's our little portion. I don't know how anybody might feel about that, or you probably have some thinking to do, but that's really where we are with regard to growing businesses in Jamestown and growing and increasing shopping and options for people to do things while they're here, in addition to just raising everybody's economic or other people's economic ability to grow themselves and develop.
Thank you, Camu and Jessica. Something I want to just add, and this might be a good segue into actually the next agenda item, which is really very much integrated with this agenda item, is that back in January, actually, when we sort of started to make some changes internal to what we look at when we evaluate loan applications. We talk a lot about, we want to make sure that the loan applicants have skin in the game, that they are bringing something to the table. And, we understand that's where collateral comes from, and having, that capital, contribution. So in having these conversations with Tamu and her team, and we've actually discussed this internally as well, we felt like there was an opportunity for people to have skin in the game and maybe not have capital and not have collateral, but understanding that they really need to bring something to the table, that we can't just give a loan. So one of the things that we started doing was requiring applicants to not only present us with a solid business plan, but present us with, you know, something that's really a little bit more in depth of a business plan, but also go to the Small Business Development Center, go to, you know, another resource to really prove to us, show us that they've done the work, that they've done the homework, that they have a short-term and a midterm and a long-term plan for how they're going to make their business sustainable, how they're going to grow their business, how they're going to, you know, what is their, show us that you can put together a budget, show us that you can put together, you know, you understand what a profit and loss statement is, you know, all of the things that these guys are talking about as resources. You know, we need to know that if we're investing in these businesses, that in order for them to be sustainable, they need not only to understand these things, but to have a commitment. And I guess that's where, you know, and I think maybe I'll turn this over to Rasan. It's kind of a mutual relationship that is not, it doesn't just stop once we issue the loan. It's, we're in it for the long haul with you. So, you know, we're sure we've got your business plan. You've done all this homework. You've done all these things that we're requiring of you ahead of time. And that's, you know, I think something that we really want to talk through is what are those requirements going to be? And then what are the metrics that we're going to ask of our loan recipients over time? And how are we measuring success internally? Because I think that's something that we need to understand is how are we tracking the success of our businesses that we have loaned to in the past and in the future. And so I think it's not necessarily just about what collateral can you bring, but what commitment can you bring? And then in turn, what commitment can we give back to you as the business owner to make sure that it's really a partnership, that, you know, we're in it for the long haul with you. So with that, I think I would like to ask Rasan if you'd like to go ahead, and then I would love for us to have some discussion.
I think you're muted, Rasan.
Thanks, sorry about that. Further context for me, so I moved my family to Jamestown March 11th. I think 2 days later, Tom Hanks was diagnosed or something like that, and then COVID became a very real thing. And so we got out of New York City, the epicenter, just before it got bad, and moved down to Chestnut Street in an Airbnb, lived right down the street from Jeff Russell for about 4 months. And so as I did that, I began to do some consulting through my business school. I'm getting my MBA at SUNY Albany right now, and they did a small business school challenge. And so we were paired up in teams and worked around the country with different small businesses who were affected by COVID-19. And then as was mentioned, the George Floyd situation and George Floyd's murder, I shouldn't call it a situation, and Black Lives Matter began. And so I was right there in town and actually was very proud of how I saw people in my hometown community respond to that, and how folks mobilized and how conversations and dialogue began to take place. And so, as Tamu mentioned, there was a question around small businesses, and long story short, that culminated with a conversation at Chattacoin Park with really with the small businesses that Tamu and a couple others could identify were minority-owned businesses in town. And so Shannon and I, along with Tamu, went and met with those. There was probably 5 or 6 different businesses represented, and we just began to listen to them. I came with my kind of consulting hat on, Shannon came with hers on. We just began to listen, and all of us took a lot of notes. And then after the meeting, Tamu and Shannon and I sit there and talked about what could we do to support these individuals. And so as Tamu kind of drove the conversation of collecting and all of the notes that we got so we could see the needs that they had, Shannon and I quickly began to determine if we were going to help out. We don't know what that would look like. We don't know what kind of situation that would be, but how might we be able to look at the long list of what we feel they need, whether they articulate it or not, and begin to divide that amongst our 2 consulting firms and just begin to help. We weren't sure where any resources would come from, but we didn't feel that we could leave that meeting and not do something. And so we just began to divide and conquer everything from me beginning to work with one of them who wants to do a social enterprise within a nonprofit, Shannon setting up an LLC paperwork, those types of things. And so we began to just kind of work together, and we pulled together a little bit of a work scope document that really took the things that we felt we could do and what was in Shannon's wheelhouse and what was in mine, and divide that amongst ourselves. And since then, I guess that would have been, I guess it was in May, we've been working with those clients kind of pro bono. You know, both of us have day jobs and other clients, but we just felt it was important for us to lean in as much as we could, regardless of what it meant for our 9 to 5. And so what we are hoping to be able to do is to continue to do that work. I had 2 calls yesterday. I know Shannon had a call yesterday, and what we found is there's a lot of good drive amongst these individual business owners, everything from a food truck to a restaurant to a lawn care service. But I think what we've also realized is there's some specific things around marketing, specific things around the technical business formation administration. We've actually divided into 4 different categories: business formation administration, finance and accounting management, new business development, generally speaking, and then this whole notion of corporate citizenship and strategy development there in town, kind of the give back that we feel each business should be a part of. And so we've just been doing that work, and we are coming to this group today after a lot of conversation with Crystal, some conversation with Tambu, but we're trying to really focus on Crystal's office and the tremendous support that she has given this effort so far, and to begin to have a conversation with this group, and to tie it back to the original point that was made in the last agenda item. Shannon and I have a concern. We're super excited about the viability of all these options, but we also do have a concern that unless there is some good, comprehensive, holistic, wraparound mentoring and one-on-one kind of touch point, hey, you've got a question, call me. We are concerned, concern might be strong. We want to make sure that these are viable options and that these businesses are viable businesses 3 to 5 years from now, and that any return, any investment that this group or any other funder or loan makes, that there's a good return on investment. And so that's why we're leaning in the way that we're leaning in. And we would just like to partner more closely with this group to do that, because we want there to be a good return on investment. Specific to Jessica's point, having been a program designer, and I'm very big on metrics and key performance indicators and those types of things. And so we welcome any rigor that might come with a partnership with you all, but we just want to hopefully be positioned to work with this group and with this, this committee to continue to provide that support, not only to the 6 or 7 organizations and businesses that we're working with, but to be able to grow that first cohort and kind of pilot a small business initiative here with the city. So with that, I'll pause for any questions or turn it back over to Crystal. And Shannon, do you want to add? Let me defer to Shannon. Shannon, would you like to add anything to that?
Oh, I think you pretty much covered it. It's, you know, one of the things I know to be true. The whole reason I started my consulting company is because I noticed in this area, a lot of the small businesses that start because they love doing what they do. In that, a lot of small business owners forget that they still have to run a business. And when it gets down to, you know, tax time or tracking expenses or income or, you know, whatever it may be, that kind of gets left to the wayside. You know, you've got, say, for instance, one of my customers has a sprinkler fitting company. And he's amazing at what he does. He puts numbers and drawings together just off the top of his head, you know, but he's terrible at running business. He's just awful at it, and he'll admit it, and it's just not his strong suit. But he didn't want to work for a company anymore. He wanted to be out on his own so he could make his own decisions. So that's where I came into play. I handle all of the back of the house things, the money and the whatever it may be. You know, anybody who owns a business knows what it takes to run a business, and when you're owner operated, it becomes that much more tricky to, you know, keep your bookkeeping straight and get your taxes done right and whatever. So I think that with any loan program such as this, it's very important to have a mentorship program, someone to guide the business, to get them on the right track and keep them on the right track. in order for them to be successful, because most businesses that fail, especially in this area, is because they were unprepared and they didn't know that they needed to have a plan for the first 3 to 5 years to keep viable. They didn't know, they just figured, I'm going to go to the county, I'm going to pick out my name, I'm going to pay my $27 and, and then I'm going to open my doors and everything's just going to go great. And then they fall on their faces because they're 100% unprepared and they have no idea what running a business actually looks like. So that's kind of why I got involved and why I started my business. And I just think it's a really important factor to have in any situation like this. And that's it.
Thank you. So we included in your packets an RFQ, a request for qualifications. This is still kind of in a draft form, but we put this together sort of with the idea that, right, if we're looking at the loan programs overall and potentially overhauling what that looks like, it's one thing to loan money, and then it's another thing to, like I said earlier, provide that commitment to stay with the business and to really help them be sustainable over the long term. I also recognize that, Rasan and Shannon and Jessica's expertise and anybody who may be involved in some sort of mentorship or ongoing providing of business support, that's not something that, anyone should be expected to do for free. Or out of, necessarily the goodness of their heart. We certainly appreciate all of the work that you guys have put into this so far and your willingness to volunteer your time. But in looking at the sustainability of our program and the services that we feel like really need to be provided, to make sure that we really are giving our businesses the support and the ongoing support that they really need. We wanted to look at, kind of formalizing, bringing in some experts and, so this RFQ kind of puts together what, and this has some input from Timu and Rasan and Shannon and Jessica as well. What does that ongoing support look like? And then of course, recognizing that internally, Department of Development does not have currently the capacity to provide that kind of level of service and accessibility at, kind of the drop of a hat, which is what a lot of businesses are going to need. Like, they're going to need to be able to pick up the phone and call somebody and say, oh my gosh, I've got this, this catastrophe and I need you to help me right now. And, as much as we try to do that, and we've been trying to do that, particularly with COVID and our response time, it's not always possible for us. And, we have a lot of plates spinning here. So we wanted to recognize that that's not something that we even have the expertise ourselves to be able to provide. And I think that's important as well. So we put this RFQ together with the hope of, one, seeking out qualified consulting firms who could provide this type of service. We do this with our contractors. We get a qualifications submittal from, we'll do a public notice, we'll put out the RFQ, we'll get a number of responses back. We will evaluate those responses, and then that helps us put together our list of contractors to pull from. For different types of projects. So this was kind of in the same line of thinking, is, put that out, get those qualifications back, and you sort of pre-qualify consulting firms that would be able to provide this type of service. So that's kind of the first thing. The second thing is what is the ask of JLDC? And I think that is a commitment from JLDC to provide some type of financial fund to be able to engage with consultants. So as we start to develop what does this new loan program look like, then is there can we have a fund where we can pay a retainer to a consulting firm or team of consultants to kind of be at the ready? So when the small business that's now gotten the JLDC loan needs that support, they can pick up the phone and call them. And then there's also a criteria that we put together, you know, that we see with this sort of program is, you know, what are all of the boxes that we need you to check as the recipient of a JLDC loan in order for you to meet your obligations to receiving those funds. And so that consultant would then work with that client to make sure that they're hitting all of those check marks and they're hitting all of the milestones, and they're reporting all of the measurables that we're asking of them. And we're really checking in and making sure that, you know, after 6 months, after year 1, after year 2, that small business continues to be viable, continues to grow, continues to have the support that they really need to be able to be sustainable for the long term. So that's
Crystal, I
that's
a
it in a
quick
nutshell.
question. Just a quick question. What would be the relationship between the small business consultant and our organization?
So the small business consultant would be a consultant that responds to this RFQ.
Would they report to us too as well, or would they, I guess, you know? Well,
Yeah, yes. Yes,
That's
essentially that is
that's
what
just-
we are asking is for that consultant or consultant team, however that response comes in, that yes, they would report to us. The board would essentially decide on, with obviously the staff's recommendations, you know, what sort of criteria are we asking of our loan applicants? What obligations are we asking them to be able to fulfill over certain periods of time? And that consultant would help them through that process, and they would be the ones to kind of give them that one-on-one support, and then that would be reported back to us. So we're able to get the measurables that we need to make sure that we really are providing the ongoing support that businesses need, and that our loans are going to be paid back. You know, I think that's, if we want to put it in those terms, it's about making sure that we're getting our loans paid back and we're getting our interest paid back, and we're able to continue to give loans. So that's really, I think, the goal is to not only be able to provide ongoing financial support to businesses in the community, but to also be able to really truly cultivate good, sustainable, viable businesses that will be here for the long term, and to start kind of cultivating that, you know, from homegrown entrepreneurship that I think that will really make our community as a whole much stronger economically and help to build that wealth, you know, from the ground up.
And if I can throw something in here, this is Stephanie. I think it is just, it's also the city supporting small businesses, which is something that historically we maybe have fallen short. And so this is just a way to show that we are helping them build. And I commend them for coming forward with this.
I think it's a win-win, and that doesn't even consider the consultants at the table, right? So Shannon and I care because, like, the people I went to school with, the ones that I'm working with, like Tony and Tom, you would know the ones that we're talking to. And I can tell you that the 2 calls that I had yesterday, those 2 people weren't even at the original meeting at the Chattacoin Park. And so people are kind of hearing about this initiative. And we're saying that we're partnering with the city to do it, you know, and so I think that, but I do, and Shannon and I do feel that this first cohort, there's some really good success stories in this first cohort. And I don't know whether or not we go with an annual cohort model and we just continue to, you know, meet with you guys monthly or quarterly, whatever that would look like. Should we be the ones to get the the consultancy. But I am a firm believer, and I'll say this again, I am a firm believer in quantifiable metrics and ROIs and KPIs. Again, it just comes from working in being on the receiving end of corporate cash, $3.2 million to fund in El Salvador from Walmart, something like that. And so the ability to be able to, first of all, honor the donor promise is what you would call it in the nonprofit world, but then just to be able to report back on what you're doing with the money. Giving the loan out and then getting the money back, that's one part of it, but getting the loan out and getting the money back, but knowing that the loan did something good and there's a long-lasting effect behind in the community, and that you're just able to continue to grow that per cohort or by individuals. I think it's exciting. It's why Shannon and I are like, look, we'll do it as long as we can. And so we would just like to maybe forge a better partnership and a new partnership with you all to do that.
I want to thank you guys for just coming forth and stepping forward to talk about these issues, to talk about potential changes. I think that personally, this is a long time coming, and COVID threw a wrench in many different things. But if anything, this helps us really refocus on what should we be looking at in terms of loans, what types of businesses, what types of loans should we be giving out for new businesses coming forward, or even ones that are looking to grow. And I appreciate all of you for being part of that. I think it would be best if we reserve time at the next JLDC next month to really dive deep into this. And Crystal, if you and your staff, as well as all of our guests here today, have recommendations for loan changes, if we could get those out in advance, just to have a starting point to talk about it. And then we can start to work through that, and next month have a really deep discussion on what should our loan programs look like going forward. Because I can tell you for a fact that I'm not sure business is going to be as normal as it was before COVID. We're going to be looking for much different, much bigger challenges. And it's going to be very difficult for a new business to start up, and it's going to be difficult for an existing business to continue without significant changes in its operations. So we really should be responsive to that and try to utilize our programs to the best that we can. So this is a great opportunity, and Crystal and your team, if you wouldn't mind circulating suggestions to changes to the loan programs in advance, so that we can all just take a look at them together, think about them, and really take the next month's meeting to process through that, ask questions, and really dive deep, if that's okay with everyone.
Sounds good.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, I want to really thank you, Tamu, for bringing this up, and Hassan and Shannon and Jessica for just being here today and talking about your passion for changes that you think really need to be made, and I believe really would impact our community in a very substantial and large way. So we're excited to continue working with you and trying to figure out how we can best serve every part of our community, even the ones that may not have a large voice right now, which we do need to give voice to. So thank you for that. We're excited to keep working with you guys.
Thank you, Eddie, for and the board for giving us the time. We appreciate it, and we look forward to. Well, I'm just pulling everybody together. It's the Rassans and the Shannons and the Crystals who you were talking to. I just decided to put on my city council hat and see how I could force my way into your meeting. But it's really about our community, and that's why we're all doing what we're doing in volunteer or public office roles. And we want people to come here for Lucy and for things like that. But we also recognize that when the summer tourism season is over, we still want our people to feel as though there's something for them to do when the tourists are gone. And when those of us who are still kind of left around, what can we continue to do throughout the year that relates to our interests or things that we would like to see going on. So I really appreciate the time. I want to thank you, and hopefully we will be talking to you again, or at least those guys will be talking to you again.
Great.
Thanks, everybody. Do we have contact information maybe for everybody that we could get passed around for? some other
Yeah,
topics that are interesting
absolutely.
and brought to mind, I'd like their contact information if you could
For
send
sure.
that.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Eddie, for allowing us the time to talk to you all. And it's good to see those of you on the call that I know, and looking forward to next steps.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Good to see you again.
I've heard Councilman Nelson has a lot of extra time if you want to keep playing some basketball.
I don't know. He was really tall then. I don't know. I might have caught him by now. I don't know. We'll
I'm
see.
really slow, so you'll be okay. But it's good to see you again.
All right, good to see you too, Tom.
Chestnut, meet Chris and you and everyone else.
That's right. All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Is there any other items for general session? We do have one executive session item regarding a potential litigation for a loan that we have. But is there any other general session items?
I do have one correction to make, Eddie. This is Stephanie. The correction to the number of JLDC loan clients. We do now have 10 paying clients, those being Nouveau, Esquire, Jamestown Rental Properties, Gialli's, Crown Street, International Ordnance Technology, Schultz, Chop House, Hamister, and Thurston Development. And that's it.
Tim, if you're talking to us, you're on mute. Okay.
Great.
Okay.
Fantastic. I have one item for executive session. Again, no action is going to be taken. This is information for the board in regards to a potential lawsuit on an active loan. If there's no other general items, we'll ask for a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
By Tony, moved by Tony, second.
I'll second that.
Tom Nelson. All right. All in favor of executive session?
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Okie dokie. If we could keep Crystal and Stephanie and Ben on, as well as, I don't know, Crystal, do we need John on as well?
No, I think, John, you can jump off if you'd like.
Well, have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, John.
Bye-bye.